I'm Norm Poltenson, publisher of the Business Journal, and I'm here with Stan Konopko. Stan is the managing partner of Bonadio in Syracuse. And Stan and I are having a conversation which is really a look back at 25 years of conducting business in upstate New York. The reason for our conversation is the Business Journal is celebrating its silver anniversary, and it seems like a good time for us to look back and see how things have changed or haven't changed in directions that we're going in. So Stan and I will simply have an informal conversation, and as the president likes to say, it's pretend we're sitting here having a beer and just talking. Stan, let me start you off with, you and I met over 2 decades ago, and we've both watched this economy changed. I know if I go back and look at my book of lists, it'll talk about a lot of manufacturers who were the big employers in our area 25 years ago, and we can both rattle them off. But now if you look at our top employers, they're in the meds and eds field. What are your observations about the changes over the last 25 years in terms of how our economy is different?
Well, I mean, I think in some regards it's different, but if you look back historically, in many regards, it's followed a historical pattern. Manufacturing has always sought the cheapest or the least expensive form of labor, all of the costs that are controllable. It's gravitated over the years. Where the Northeast used to be the hub of manufacturing, gradually it's shifted south, and in some instances west and southwest, and now it's been exported in many regards to other parts of the world. So there's been huge changes as the consumers and people that buy products that the manufacturers are producing are looking for the lowest cost alternatives, and those manufacturers are looking for the lowest cost and the place where it's least expensive to do business. So while it's very much a significant change over time, and over the past 25 years, it's probably been exacerbated for us because we've seen that migration where it's exited the area. On the positive side, as we've talked a little bit about the change in the economy, and you look at upstate New York and really across most of upstate now, there is a transformation now where, when you look at the meds and eds transformation, I think that's been significant. When you look at technology, and I think there's been really a transformation in the climate now, whereas before across New York State, many cities were dominated by large manufacturing concerns. Syracuse no exception. When those exit, it's much more difficult to see what's replaced it because it's been more fragmented. They're typically smaller, but the economy still remains reasonably healthy, and it's been good to see that the upstate New York area and central New York area have not really been as negatively impacted as some other areas around the country.
In talking about our economy, again, going back 25 years, we've watched a situation where the economy has grown slowly compared to the national economy on a consistent basis. We've watched an out-migration of businesses. What's the impact of that on employers? How have they dealt with that?
Well, I think the struggle for talent remains. I think there's been, obviously with the decline in the population in general, I mean, that shrinks the pool from which potential employers have to choose from. I think it's made it a little bit more difficult to always attract the type of talent that you want. And people tend to be a little bit more mobile now than they were 25 years ago. It's not unusual now for people may attend grow up here, attend school, attend college, and then they go where the jobs are, which is not always in central New York. So that continues to be a challenge in being able to fulfill the needs that exist even today. I was just talking with a client of mine that's in the North Country, and they've had to look very carefully at where they're located in order to be able to attract the type of engineering talent that they need, because they just can't get people to go where they don't want to go anymore. The demand is high in all those areas.
I hear that on a regular basis from engineering firms here who have job openings on a consistent basis, and that's problematic filling them. All right, so that seems to be a universal problem.
Mm-hmm.
How about your own firm as you look back 25 years? I know Bonadio has grown substantially. You've grown organically and grown by acquisition, and you've adopted I guess I would call it a throughway strategy in terms of expansion. What?
I think if you look back 25 years, Bonadio has been around now as a firm for just over 30 years. So, we've seen some rather dramatic changes from really Tom Bonadio and his original partner, and I believe his mother was his first employee, and she wasn't paid. But now, we've grown through that strategy now to slightly over 350 people. In terms of our ranking nationally now, we've grown to I think we're in the 60s in terms of the size of public accounting firms in the United States, and that's out of a pool of about 40,000. So we've been quite proud of the growth. But I think it's really mirrored the central New York and upstate New York pattern. It's really not been the large major corporations. It's really been the small businesses, a lot of the family-owned businesses. And as those have continued to expand, we have as well. And that still remains what I would say our core competency is in small and mid-sized businesses.
The ones I see who are growing almost to the individual corporation comes as a result of reaching outside our region and going out of state or going global, and that's where they're finding their growth in their markets and growing with it. And they're not growing internally just because the local economy is growing substantially. Is that something that you've done?
I would tend to agree with you, Norm, on that. I mean, I think what you see now, even small businesses now tend to compete on a more global basis, where, if you went back 25 years ago, small businesses tended to really service the local area, the local economy, and support that local economy. What you see today is even the small businesses maybe doing business, on a global scale, and that creates all sorts of complexities that didn't exist in the small business environment 25 years ago. People didn't worry about foreign currency conversion and changes in those markets, and it affects almost everyone now, and even businesses that stay here and service a local customer base. Many times, even the raw materials that they use to produce whatever it is that they produce come from outside the country. So now everybody's involved in the global economy in many instances, whether they like it or not.
Yep, the supply chain is clearly global, and even if you think you're buying locally, it may well be that the product came from somewhere else and was assembled here or something of that.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Well, you and I have covered a number of topics this afternoon. And I wanted to ask you, as we've looked back over 25 years of doing business in Central New York, do you have anything that you'd like to add or any comments to our discussion?
Sure. I think, Norman, the one thing that I'm enthusiastic about when we look at the economic environment in Central New York is it is vibrant, it is transitioning. And when we look at opportunities, there's still great opportunities here. I think when we look at that whole medical education environment now and that sort of transition. I was reading an interesting statistic that said, there was somewhere between $1 and $2 billion in research and development dollars that make their way to Central New York as a result of those industries being here. And I think, I'm optimistic about that. It may not look the same, it may not necessarily feel the same, but I'm not sure that we're ever going to go back to the smokestack environment where, there was a lot of great, jobs for, people that tended to work with their hands and that sort of thing. I think that's become a lot more challenging now. And I think the challenge that we face is being able to provide people with the education that they need to develop the skills that they need to be able to service, the needs of this century now. And I think that's where the challenge is. But I'm optimistic that I think when you look at all the programs that are out there now, that those things are coming to bear.
Well, on that note of optimism, let's wrap up our conversation. I want to thank you for looking back with me over the last 25 years.
That was great.
And hopefully you and I will be sitting here 25 years from now and doing another review.
That would be great. congratulations again on 25 very successful years for you and your business.
Thank you very much.